Every month in the world of FPV, new products come out, and every month me and my partner, It's Blunty, get together and run them down for you. And today, it is November. It is December. What month is... Frick. It was going so well, Blunty.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's OcuSync 3 Air Unit launch month. That's one thing.
That's all we care about. We're recording this at the end of November. It may come out whenever it comes out. Well, anyway, let's get into new products for whatever month this is. I'm so confused right now. It was going so well. And we always like to start off with top products, sort of the biggest things to drop this month, the biggest, most significant ones. And there really is only one contender for that this month, top contender anyway, the DJI O3 Air Unit. How do we want to approach this, Blunty? Because there's people who have done 30, 45-minute reviews, and some people are sick of hearing about it. How can we best cover this here in this product roundup?
I guess, you know, basically we could just let you know, if you don't know, the long and short of it is that DJI has released a new air unit. And yeah, it's the sequel basically to the DIY FPV system that we know and love, the air unit and Vista. It will work with your V2 goggles, or it'll work with new goggles too they're releasing. And there's also a light SKU of the goggles too coming that are a little less featured. We don't know exactly how less featured, and there'll be a little less money, and we don't know when those are coming either. But yeah, other than that, it's basically just a souped up, fancier version. It's got onboard recording. It's got a nicer camera, better, you know, 4K, 120 onboard or 100, depending on what goggles you have. You know, lots of different things that are pretty neat, I think. And it's pretty neat to see DJI staying in the game.
That is true. It's good to see them continuing to apply their unique form of innovation to the FPV world. I think you did hit on a couple of really important points that people are wondering about. Compatibility. So you can use it with your existing goggles too, if you're a current DJI user, or you could buy the new goggles to get a little bit of an uptick in performance. With the new goggles, you get 1080p resolution sent straight into your screens. With the V2 goggles, you get 810p. And those are available at 100, 1080p 100, and 810p 120 FPS, up to 4K recording on board, SD card on board. So some people have argued that this could replace an action camera. There's pros and cons to that argument, but that's going to be true for some people. And
little bit of a caveat that might be important. Some people are going to want to record 4K 120 because they hear it can happen. And you can only do that with the V2 goggles currently.
That's right.
The goggles too have 100 frames a second limit, and that means that for some reason that's also limited to on the recording side of things. So yeah, just in case you are wondering, that is a limitation there. Otherwise, you get basically similar features across both sides. Yeah,
you have to have the same frame rate recorded on the air unit as is being shown in the goggles. You can have different resolution. Well, the resolution in the goggles is always either 810 or 1080. But you can record on the air unit whatever you like. I am impressed with this product, to be honest with you. The range and penetration is a noticeable upgrade compared to the V2. The exact range and penetration will depend on many different conditions, but it's always nice when you can fly further without thinking about, oh, am I going to fail safe? And they didn't mark up the price as much as I thought they would either. $229.
Yeah, it's definitely a little less than we expected from the leaks that we had heard. And it does seem like, yeah, like you said, there's quite a big performance increase yeah, for that price jump. So yeah, it's pretty neat to see this coming out. They also, you know, for people that are wondering, they did the full MSP DisplayPort OSD that we asked for.
Yep, Betaflight OSD works.
But we've also got some strange limitations in the fact you can't choose a specific power level. And it's a little more locked down when you're going to get it. Even if you're in an FCC mode, you're going to get less channels until you do the ham CFG hack that Madstech has a video out on. Yeah. In case you pick this up. So
yeah. So if you are going to get this, definitely go check out the Madstech video. I think his video is about the Avata O3 Air Unit. That's the keyword that's on it, but it works exactly the same for this one. And well, I was going to say everybody who's in an FCC region would want to do this, but let's be honest, everyone in the whole world is going to do this and use the full output power and the full channel set, even though it's probably not legal where you are, and it's fine. A couple of gotchas with this, Blunty. Let's see. Currently, the goggles 2 are not backwards compatible with older Vistas, Caddx Vista, RunCam Link, etc. Although DJI says they're going to release that feature very soon, and we know from leaks that they are working on it. Nevertheless, we have to acknowledge that doesn't work today. What other sort of gotchas might there be with this product that those nasty reviewers didn't tell you about, but we're going to tell you about?
One thing we're hearing is that the Air Unit has, depending on how you're using it, the problem is you can't set the power level like we mentioned. So we're hearing that it's possible for it to draw over 40, like up to 40% more power than the original Air Unit in Vista. So it's possible that if that is the case, you're going to draw over the wattage your BEC can pull, like your 9-volt or 8-volt regulator on your DJI flight controller that's already there. It might not support this. Now, I also heard that Chris Rosser did a little bit of testing, and he got around 17 watts, 16 watts in his testing, which is similar to what he was seeing at max power output of the Vista. So it is possible, depending on use case, that you won't see that. But I am concerned that at longer ranges, or when it gets lower, it's going to up that power output, especially because we can't choose it again. And you're going to kind of overload that BEC. And the last place you want that to happen is 10 kilometers away. So.
Yeah. So I think that if you have, like, we know that iFlight is shipping bind and flies with this Air Unit in it. And iFlight voltage regulators are typically spec'd at 2 amps, and that's a conservative spec. And they think they're actually rated up to 3 amps, but they don't say that in their marketing materials because they just want to be conservative. And I know this because I asked them about it when they're the ones who make my JBF7. So that's how I know this. They're shipping this with a honest 2 amp regulator, 2 amps, 9 volts. And they probably feel like that works. But they know that they could go a little further if they need to. I think if you've got an honest 2 amp regulator, you're fine, or more. 2 amps, 9 volts, that's 18 watts. But if you're down in the 1.5 amps, 9 volt regulator territory, it might be a little sketchy. So keep that in mind. It can run on directly off of VBAT though. So if you need to, you could certainly wire it right up to the 6S battery and be good to go. We're going to put some links because this is a product that we're not going to cover exhaustively here in this roundup, but we are going to put some links to some reviews, including my own, down in the video description, as well as product links for all the stuff we're going to cover. If you want to pick up any of this stuff, it's all linked down there. Any final words about the O3 Air Unit before we move on?
I'm interested to see how everybody feels about it and what the overall, as everybody gets their units and the greater community gets into them. I'm very interested to see how the content is and how people feel about replacing it and not using GoPros. And there's a lot of caveats in a lot of different parts of the system. And it'll be interesting to see how it folds into the ecosystem. Yeah.
When the original V2 system came out, I said, this is pretty cool, but it's way too expensive. And I think that very few people are really going to adopt it. And I still remember the first time I just went out to our local park here in Knoxville and some guy had the system and was flying it. And I thought, he's not a YouTuber. He's not an influencer. He's not a professional. He's just a guy who thought it was cool and bought it. And I was like, oh, this is going to take off. And it did. And the same thing may happen here with this, potentially. I don't know. Remains to be seen. Okay. Next up in the high priority top products. Blunty, we got another new FPV related system. This is the Fat Shark Recon HD. And if you're thinking, wait, didn't Fat Shark release a Recon HD that was HD0 compatible? Yes, they did. And before that, there was an analog Recon HD. Fat Shark loves to recycle their products and apparently recycle their product names. This is the Walksnail compatible Recon HD. It's a 1080p box coggle. You can get into the Walksnail system for $279. What do you think?
Yeah. It's interesting. A couple caveats are that this is, so you are going to get your 1080p. You're only going to get TFT display here instead of OLED, obviously for the price. That kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. You're also going to get 60 frames a second. So you're kind of going to be a little bit limited here. As we know, HD0 and Walksnail and all these different companies have options for higher frame rates now. Walksnail has a 100 frame rate mode, the 100 frames a second mode, which is the low latency version. So you're going to have to run a higher latency, higher quality mode with these goggles if you use them. And then I think also we have to consider just like, you know, they didn't put an analog in and they didn't put an HDMI in on these goggles. So they're going to be kind of limited, and you got to know that you're only buying a TFT 1080 60 panel that's going to be used for Walksnail.
Yeah, it's essentially not, it's not going to give you the full capability of the Walksnail system because you can't do the 100 frame per second low latency mode. So you're going to be stuck with roughly 10 milliseconds of additional latency. Maybe you care, maybe you don't. And it will only do Walksnail. And that's true. The Dominator, the $600 Dominator goggles also don't have HDMI input, don't have analog input. But like we talked about, that there's the SkyZone Cobra X, which is a pretty solid analog goggle that also has HDMI input and could theoretically be used with the standalone VRX as a potential alternative.
Yeah, and you're going to end up spending more money on to do that, but the fact of the matter is that you're also going to get a much more versatile setup. Yeah. So, you know, it really depends on what you're looking for and what your aim is, but, you know, if you buy something like the Cobra X, you could then buy an HD0 or a Walksnail, and then you have 3-in-1. And you're able to buy into them over time versus, you know, you're locking yourself in with a Walksnail box goggle for sure.
Yeah. Nevertheless, I think that it's going to be a desirable choice for some people, maybe people who are curious about I think if you have a set of goggles that can do HDMI input, then the standalone VRX is the better choice for you, probably guaranteed.
Certainly.
But if you don't have a set of goggles and you're interested in trying the system out, the Fat Shark Recon might be for you. Let's see, Blunty, what else have we got in the top products this month?
The last top product we're going to look at is the new Ranger line from Radiomaster. These are Express ELRS transmitters that are kind of hopefully going to be a new standard, or that's the idea, for a good quality Express ELRS TX module. We've got a micro and a nano that are $40 that are fairly standard. They're just, you know, Radiomaster is letting us know they're good build quality. Radiomaster does work heavily with the developers to make sure that they're getting good quality hardware and they're following all the best practices. So, you know, these seem to be good modules. And then they've also released a $100 module, which is their fancier version. And they're all called Ranger, though I'm not sure why. That's one.
There's the Ranger Micro, and the Ranger Nano. So that's, I like to call it the thick boy, the big boy.
So this Radiomaster $100 big boy here has the option to convert to a nano or a micro. They give you a kit to switch to either one, all included, and they give you some different antenna options in case you would like those, just to make sure you're kind of all suited. But I think the big lead here is that this is the first 2-watt module that we've seen.
Yeah, the first, well, just to be pedantic, the first 2.4 gigahertz module capable of doing 2 watts. Correct. Way back when there was a FreeSky R9 900 megahertz module that could do it. People will point that out in the comments if we don't let that slide.
And the first 2.4 gigahertz, Express ELRS module that does 2 watts. But good to know.
And so for people who need just that little bit of extra range out of Express ELRS, this is currently the highest powered one. You do have to go through an unlock process. Wesley Vardy has a video about it, but it's official. It's officially unofficial, like that it can do it, and it will be safe and won't burn itself up.
It has the correct PA. The others do not. The cheaper ones do not. And as far as I know, there is no other module on the market that can do this. So please do not do that conversion to anything else. It is just for this one. But yeah, this one has a PA to support that. Yeah.
So 2 things about this, I think, that stand out. Number one, Express ELRS, right? That's exciting. But the big problem with Express ELRS is the kind of inconsistent build quality and hardware. Some manufacturers make good stuff. Some manufacturers just kind of make stuff and throw it out there and don't work with the devs and release products with flaws. And for the most part, I think what we're seeing is Radiomaster is trying to deliver a consistent, reliable, trustworthy level of that you would expect from a control module out of this. And that's where they're trying to sort of make this be the de facto standard, if you will. And we'll see how that plays out, but it looks good so far.
Also, we got to tell people it does have RGB. So, hey.
Oh, I mean, that alone is worth $99. We'll talk more about the Ranger receivers and what makes them special a little later in the video. But now we're going to go into our categories. And which category do you think we should start with?
Let's start with our flight controller category. So we got a couple AIOs up on the list today. We've got T-Motor has released some two AIOs, two 1S AIOs. So we wanted to point those out for you. One of them is the F411 AIO. It's a 6-amp Express LRS built in with VTX and Blu-ray pre-flashed. So kind of all kinds of everything but the kitchen sink there. Basically, you know, they note that you just
VTX on board. Wow, it really is an AIO.
Yeah, you really just toss on the camera and you're good to go.
Wow,
with that
guy. And then this one looks like, oh, it's not the same thing. It's a 13 amp. So both of these are going to be used for 1S like toothpick builds, or maybe I guess we could use them for a tiny whoop. I suppose probably the 6 amp for the tiny whoop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could probably use either one for a tiny whoop, or but yeah, I think the 6 amp is more aimed at like, hey, everything's here except the camera. Toss this in a whoop with the camera, and you're good to go. And then the 13 amp is BL32. A little higher, current draw, the 13 amp, and I think you know, if you're trying to do a little more draw, or you want to get that toothpick going, 13 amp is probably gonna be good for you. You're
going up into the maybe 10, 12, or even 13 millimeter motors for a very light 1S toothpick. That would be something like this one on the right. That's exciting. It's exciting because number one, until now, I think there's been really one true all-in-one, which is the Happymodel Diamond with VTX receiver, flight controller, and ESC all-in-one. And it's very good, but it's always nice to see alternatives and competition. It's also nice because T-Motor ESCs and flight controllers historically have been made by Acon, who makes very, very good ESCs. And so if these are also made by Acon, then I have a good feeling, although of course we'll have to wait and see how it actually plays out. What is up with the product name, Blunty? Is this literally the name of the flight controller? F411 AIO 1S6. Hey, what flight controller are you running there? Well, it's the T-Motor F411 AIO 1S6A ELRS VTX Blu-ray, of course.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Diatron has this problem too. I would really love some naming. Like one thing, like we just talked about, you mentioned the FrSky Diamond, or the the Happymodel Diamond. And then we could just call that out. We know what it is when we say the Happymodel Diamond, right? It's like a name that's recognizable. Also, they have the X12. I think that's the other AIO they have, but they're both from Happymodel, and it's good to see somebody else doing them. But both those are like nameable. Like, oh, it's the X12. Oh, it's the Diamond. Oh, it's the Crazy Bee. Like, we know Happymodel's boards by name. And like, it should not be crazy to have that with another company. It would be nice.
The flip side, I mean, I can't help but argue with us in real time. The flip side is that we're super annoyed when somebody like T-Motor names their motor the F60. And I'm like, well, what size motor is it, T-Motor? That's an F60. Was it 2007? Is it 2306? It's an F60. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of get where that's coming from, but I feel like the size of a flight controller and the specs of a flight controller are pretty general versus like, you know, you got to know the size of a motor when you're buying a motor. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
like... You know, I'm more leaning on the side of like GemFan bad for naming props wrong. You know what I mean? So,
why don't they just call it the T-Motor F411 AIO Gen 2 or something? Beta FPV. Beta FPV does this right, Blunty. I'm going to give it to him. This is one thing that Beta FPV does really well, is name their products.
Yeah. I mean, I still like the names. I think the names are good.
Just the Beta FPV AIO F4 V3. I can get with that. You like names like Diamond or whatever.
It's just easier to remember what they are. Like which one was a V2? But I remember what the Diamond was, you know.
Okay. Let's move on. I think we beat that horse enough. Let's talk about frames. And this month the frames that we're going to be talking about, there's something special going on with frames related to the O3 Air Unit, because everything must relate back to DJI, of course. But before we talk about that, we've got a couple just new frames that have come out that we think are worth your notice. And the first one is here from Drone Co. Productions. This is their Shotglass 2-inch Cinewhoop frame. What do we got here, Blunty?
Yeah, you might know Drone Co. Production from the Slammed Squirt. They were the first company, I believe, to make thinner ducts for the Squirt. and then sell those commercially. And a lot of people were excited because for a long time they thought you had to use the long squirt ducts and have a lot more wind resistance and things. And he kind of, I would say, revolutionized that understanding of people. And now he's come in with his new Shotglass, which is a 2-inch Cinewhoop. The goal here is meant for a naked GoPro. So you can get a naked, he claims you can get a naked GoPro and a battery and a full build on this guy and under 200 grams, which is pretty crazy.
So this sounds like it's going to be largely for people, largely for professionals or people doing commercial style shoots, real estate shoots, etc. And they need the smallest possible thing that can carry a naked GoPro. So they're like they're flying between the bartender's arms or whatever. Like that bowling alley shoot.
You want to be really inoffensive. You can kind of fly this. The one thing I'll say is I wish it was guarded all the way. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to get hit, but I mean, depending on how you're flying, you definitely could get hit. So maybe it'd be nice to have like a little extra kit where you could kind of guard the sides if you want to fly around people.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think it's totally for places where you want to be inoffensive, you want to get in and get out, you know, kind of small, easy shots and stuff. So yeah, cool little option if anybody's looking for something like that. Also, seems like a pretty decent price. Where are we at with that? With standoffs, $32. So.
Oh gosh, that's practically a bargain. Now I know that Droneco Productions also sell bind and flies too, don't they? They do, yeah. I'm not sure if they have a Shotglass bind and fly. Okay, so I feel like their pedigree as a builder means that like sometimes you'll get people. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular, but they'll build a bind and fly, but maybe they're not actually out there sort of working it in day to day, and so it's a fine build, but maybe it's got little problems or doesn't work like you would expect. But Droneco they're really making Cinewhoops for people who fly Cinewhoops professionally. You know, they'll make them for hobbyists too, but you can really trust you're getting a good build, a capable build from them. Keep going. There you go on the right. Oh yeah. $375 for the bind and fly. There you go. Nice. Next up, we've got a inexplicably popular frame. I say inexplicable, not because I think there's any reason it shouldn't be popular, but because the people in my Discord server are in freaking love with this frame. And there has been a thread that they have kept alive on on Discord. You start a thread, and then if the thread isn't active, it's sort of removed and folded back into the main channel. This Odonata thread has been active for several months. They just keep talking about it. And one of my patrons actually said, "I have one. Can I send it to you, Bardwell? You have to fly it." Eventually, I'm going to have to review one of these, and then I'll feel a lot of pressure if I don't love it, because apparently everyone does. But here we are talking about the Odonata again. What's new this time, Blunty? This is the Odonata HD. So we had the original Odonata that seemed to be pretty cool for people. They enjoyed it. So they've just made a new version of this in case you were interested in that. Now you can get the HD version. It even notes here, the Avatar System 1S board, the current one, is too large. So you're going to want to run this with a Naked Vista, an HD0 Whoop Light board, or analog, but it is set up for the DJI Naked Vista or the HD0 Whoop Light. Worth mentioning that I happen to know a new smaller Avatar 1S board is in the works. And I only know this because someone sent me a bind and fly quad with this VTX in it. And I was like, wait a minute, where did this come from? I don't know when it's coming, but... Yeah, I will say from the camera shot you showed me, it looked comparably sized. It's a tiny bit smaller. Yeah, so well, I wonder if it'll fit or not. It'll be interesting. Don't know. Yep. What is this dual motor mounting, Blunty? I don't see a difference in the frame. Does it do like an Octo? I think it just adds an extra, like an extra 2 holes. Oh. So like you can choose so you can mount 3-hole motors or 2-hole motors instead of just the one size motor. Okay. Alrighty. Well, this is a beloved little, what is it, 2-inch? 2-inch. Reminds me a lot of things like the Babito or the iFlight Mosquito, or not the iFlight Mosquito, Newbie Drone Mosquito. Not quite that small though, because those guys are coming in with like 35mm props, right? This is a little bigger. I believe so. Yeah, like 1.5s, 1.6s. Yeah, this is a little bigger. Not quite a whoop, but not quite a toothpick either. The Odonata. Alrighty, cool. This is the Supafly Syncmode. And this was sent to us by a fan.
This is Sync FPV's new frame.
Mm-hmm.
The Syncmode. So he's put his name on a frame. And this used to be called the flip mode, and he kind of switched it up for his own taste to fly around bandos and stuff. To me, it reminds me a lot of like just because I'm familiar with it, the Skyliner. It seems similar in style to that. So
yeah, we've got a similar way of joining the front camera plate, the camera cage, to the main plate. I think the Skyliner puts 2 standoffs, because this is an area that can pop out if it's not reinforced. He's got a single standoff here. Either way is probably fine. It gives us a little more opening here. It looks a little more reinforced than the Skyliner. Could be wrong about that. Got these nice premium washers here. They always look really cool. Does it come colored like this?
I believe so. Yeah, that's his style. So you get it with the fanciness.
Yeah, this one looks like it's hand painted. I hope that they're not literally hand painting every single one of them. That sounds tedious. I can't help but notice some of the ways in which this frame looks just a little bit dated in terms of some of the things that we think we know today about frame design. Like, for example, the wide flat arms. The tendency today is to move more towards arms with a square cross section because they give a better balance of stiffness, resonance characteristics, and weight. I can't help but think this looks like a little bit of a dated frame.
So we should point out, we typically chastise people for not listing information. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we do have with this is lots of information. So if you check that last picture, he's got an FEA analysis picture.
Oh, well, F you.
He has claimed to have done FEA analysis on this frame. In addition, if you scroll down, he has a list of all the reasons they made all the decisions on this frame, categorized by bullet point, which is exactly what we have asked for previously.
All right. Well, this is my new favorite frame.
So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, we get, his information about why he did this. So he says new arm design makes primary frame mode lower optimized using FEA simulation. So he claims that based on simulations and stuff, it is good. So
there you go. Well, yeah, I can't argue with that.
I just say exactly what we've asked before. Like, hey, if you think this is good for a reason, and maybe colloquially people don't, then let us know why. And this is exactly what he's done here. So.
Little disappointed that it's sized for a 28mm camera. I can't think of how long it's been since people used those.
I will say that one benefit, and the next segment we're going to do is the O3 Air Unit, and we're going to talk about frames that fit that camera. This, I'm sure, will fit that camera easily, and you won't see the front plates because they're going to be separated by at least 28
millimeters. You're not wrong about that. Yeah, you'll need to. Well, it's a pretty cool frame. It looks like a lot of work has been put into it. I think one of the things you certainly can say, Blunty, is that a lot of times with a frame, it is the invisible work that goes into it that differentiates it. Like, you could just sit down and draw a frame on paper and cut it out of carbon, and maybe it'd be good or maybe it'd be bad. And an amateur eye wouldn't be able to tell the difference between that and a frame like maybe this one or like Chris Rosser's AOS frames that have a lot of thought and intent put into them. It's nice that all this stuff is documented for folks like me to read and learn from.
I think I'll just say I think you might be right about the painting. It's I believe the standoffs and the washers are colored, and then the side plates that are blue carbon. But I don't, and the bottom is blue carbon. But I don't think the edges are painted like that.
Yeah, so he's done these manually. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it come with the Sharpies? That'd be nice. The next couple frames we're going to look at address a problem that's been raised by the DJI O3 Air Unit, which is that the camera is the same width as the previous DJI cameras and will fit in most frame plates, but the lens is much wider than typical FPV camera lenses. So although the camera might fit, the lens won't push up between your standoffs like you would expect it to. And basically, Blunty, this means that the O3 camera, it just won't work with a lot of frames today that are sized for 19mm cameras.
Yeah, what you're going to find is that if you can fit it, in a lot of cases, you're going to see side plates or standoffs. And yeah, that's part of what we're talking about today is why, yeah, these folks have released new versions of their frames or changes to fix that stuff. So yeah, first we got the AOS 503, which is very similar to your traditional AOS 5 that he's been building, Mr. Chris Rosser. However, it's just redesigned that front plate and setup so that it can be a little bit wider to accommodate the issues.
Yeah, a lot of these changes are going to be subtle. A lot of manufacturers are just slightly widening their front standoffs or slightly pushing the camera forward. So, and frankly, I think we're going to see a lot of frames that simply adapt and you don't have a separate O3 version, because if a frame will hold the O3 camera, it'll probably work just fine. You might need a little bit of a shim or a washer to use a 19mm camera, but it'll probably work just fine. But in this case, Chris Rosser has come up with a completely separate version specifically for the O3. I think Vanover's doing the same thing with the Vannystyle, although I don't know if it's for sale yet.
Yeah, and I think his is a kit where I was going to include that as well.
Let's look that up. Here's the O3. Ah, yeah. Here's the O3 upgrade kit for the Vannystyle frame. He actually sent me one of these. I'm going to build it out. But basically, it just adapts the camera and adapts the plates just a little bit, which pushes the camera forward.
Yeah, presumably you'll be able to buy the Vannystyle with that as well.
Yeah.
So.
And then we've also got one more we called out here, the iFlight Nazgul Evoque, probably one of the most popular bind and fly 5-inches. This is what they've done. I think they're actually redesigning their whole line of frames with this new front end. And one of the advantages of it is that it works fine with that O3 camera. So, yeah, just wanted to shout that out. There are other frames as well, but yeah, I want to raise that issue.
I mean, that basically brings us into our next thing. We're going to talk about bind and flies, and we wanted to point out that iFlight actually has a bind and fly version of that Evoque with the O3 Air Unit as an option.
Yeah, $539 for the Evoque F5 V2 with the O3 Air Unit. Man, iFlight's drones are getting so... They're starting to look like consumer products and not just a hobby product being made by a company. And I have such mixed feelings about it, Blunty. I really do. Like, it's nice to see an FPV drone looking like a commercial product, because that means hopefully that there's, you know, the hobby is becoming more mainstream. But also, like, every time I have to work on one of these and I have to take the damn side plates off to get at the electronics, I'm just cussing and being like, why do we do this this way? Who cares about stink-bit blinky LEDs? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, right? Because you want everything to be more professional, but you also want everything to be easy to work on. And yeah, and convenient and stuff, and less fiddly and stuff. You know, there's a lot of give and take that you get. As soon as you start packaging a product together and making it more convenient and making it more whatever for an end user, then you're going to make it less convenient for the people that are working on it for sure. So
yeah, this looks badass though. Like, if I wanted to, like, say, hey everybody, I fly drones for a living, would I show them this, or would I show them, like, you know, a wizard, or right, you know, or even like a switchback? This looks like something from outer space. I don't know. Sure. Lots of manufacturers with bind and flies. We just called a couple of them out. A couple of my favorite 5-inch bind and flies. The GEPRC Mark5 now available with the O3 Air Unit. The Nazgul Evoque now available with the O3 Air Unit, and more. And of course, there are links in the video description if you want to pick them up. Well, we got a couple other bind and flies before we move on from this section, and before we start talking about the giveaway. That's right, we're going to give away some of these items. The next up is the GEPRC Cinebot30. The GEPRC Cinelog 3.0 was, I think it was in contention for the best Cinewhoop bind and fly. The Cinebot makes a couple of improvements. Well, supposedly they're improvements. One of the things they've done is they've switched to significantly larger motors. They're using 1804 motors instead of 1404, taller motors, to try to get just a little more power for carrying a little more weight, bigger battery, or a heavier GoPro, or a heavier video transmitter, now available with the O3 Air Unit, as well as all the previous ones. I haven't tried this out, Blunty. 1804 is a pretty big motor for a Cinewhoop, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how the stability will be and how the flight will be. One thing they add in here is some of these frames do this, but not all of them. It has that extra top plate to also stabilize the GoPro and kind of separate it from the frame. So that's an interesting choice as well. I guess that was also in the last one.
Yeah. I said taller motors. They're wider motors, not taller. I don't know what I'm thinking. I do like moving towards pancake style motors for Cinewhoops. One of the big problems with them is heat dissipation. The motors get very hot because they tend to be overloaded. And having wider motors is, I think, this is one of the compelling use cases where wider motors make a lot of sense. I mean, at some point, aren't we just using a 2004? I mean, I guess we're just trying to split the difference. 2004, I think a lot of people would say is maybe overkill. I don't know. For a 3-inch? I don't know. Is 2004 overkill for a 3-inch?
I'm not sure. On a Cinewhoop, I'm not sure.
Yeah. There have been Cinewhoops with 2004s that I've liked. Yeah. So there you go. We've also got the Foxeer Foxwhoop. This was sent in by a viewer. This looks very, shall I say, lightweight.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. A minimalist, something like that. It's probably a good way to put it.
Flimsy? Are we dancing around the word flimsy?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends on, I guess it depends on application and stuff. But yeah, it does seem a little bit flimsy for sure.
I mean, it's always hard to judge with plastic. Sometimes plastic can be super durable. Sometimes it just shatters. It just depends on where your priority is for weight versus durability. Certainly you're not going to be bando bashing a Cinewhoop, but they do crash. 2105 motors for a 3.5-inch prop. So we're definitely in the carrying a full GoPro category or a naked GoPro with a heavier battery and longer flight time. 7 minutes flight time for the analog setup, they advertise.
Also, as everything else on the Spinify list has been optional with an O3. So.
Everybody's making the O3. Comes with the Foxeer Reaper AIO. I think the Reaper line has a pretty good track record, so that's encouraging. I think to me, the biggest question about this is the durability of the ducts. Am I going to be confident that those are going to not just, explode on the first crash?
Well, they say they're unbreakable, so.
Well, people say a lot of things. I've broken many unbreakable things in the course of my career as a product reviewer. So we check out some reviews and see what people say about that. But $289 for the analog version, $439 for the O3 version. Yeah, could be good.
Next up, we've got a radio. We've got only one this month, and it's going to be the Zorro AG01. The Pyrodrone has released a version with their color scheme of the Radiomaster Zorro, an all carbon with the AG01 gimbals. Pretty cool.
Yeah, this is just a Radiomaster Zorro with custom colors. You support Pyrodrone, of course, which is a worthy cause. It's a nice radio. I do think that sometimes with all these different special edition Radiomaster radios, it can get a little confusing, like what's the difference? And it's almost always cosmetic. But the AG01 gimbals are a very, very nice upgrade. A $200 price is a good price for this radio. And
the carbon is fancy too.
Oh, you're right. It has a fancy carbon that the regular one doesn't. It's a nice looking radio.
Reminds me of like an off-brand Iron Man, like the color scheme.
Right.
I
mean, I'm a big fan of Pyro's color scheme. Of all the different stores, Pyro's color scheme is my favorite. That gold and blue, kind of a little close to gold and purple, but
it's like it kind of reminds me of like Saturday morning cartoons for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Color scheme.
Well, we're going to come back to something we talked about earlier, which is the receivers. So these are the Radiomaster RP1 and RP2 receivers, and they're just standard Express LRS receivers, nothing special about them. Obviously, Radiomaster has a good reputation for build quality, but so do other manufacturers. That's not the point. This one is the RP3 Blunty, and it's got diversity, which means you can have two antennas and it's going to switch between them. So you get a little bit more flexibility in how you mount your antennas. And it's got an LNA. What's the LNA mean?
So the LNA is going to be basically make it more sensitive so it can see the receiver signal better when it's out in the field. And the PA is going to give it the better telemetry performance. Yeah, so those are kind of like just a little bit of improvements on some of the traditional designs.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got this receiver, the Super D ELRS 2.4G diversity receiver. And this one has a TCXO, temperature compensated crystal oscillator.
Yeah, basically, we've talked a little bit before about how there's an offset issue with Express LRS. So basically, as components heat up and cool down, the crystal oscillators inside can change the frequency that the output at. And basically, there's a margin on Express LRS, and if you get outside of that margin, then unfortunately, you run into an issue where you can no longer basically connect to the receiver and the transmitter. They just won't talk to each other because they're out of frequency. And so this TCXO solves that problem by making it so that as the temperature changes, it puts it back into the correct frequency. So no matter how hot or cold it gets up to a certain limit, it's fine and it can be the same frequency.
Yeah. So that's exciting, especially if you fly in places with different temperature extremes. But it's also exciting because it helps reduce the effect of manufacturing variance and ensures that you're going to get something that's in the right range. The other thing that this Super D receiver has that's worth noting is the true diversity with dual receiver chains. So both of these receivers may look similar cosmetically in that they have two antennas coming off of them, but the RP3 has a single receiver, and it's going to switch between the antennas based on its best guess about which antenna is getting the best signal at the current moment. But the receiver with true diversity is going to just listen to both signals at the same time, and then it will know which one is best. And that means basically you get better range, more reliability, essentially. So look for receivers out there with the TCXO, and potentially, if you want the maximum possible range, look for receivers with true diversity, because those are desirable features.
Yeah, we have one more receiver, actually, one more receiver set, the Happymodel, the EP series. They've released a new version of these. They're also with the TCXO receivers. Mm-hmm. So basically, this is the traditional EP1 and EP2 you're used to, and then an EP3, I think they're calling that. Let's see what they're calling it. Yeah, an EP1 dual is what they're calling the other one. And that's going to be the same idea there, that I believe it's an antenna switching dual TCXO. Continuing
on, we got to talk about the Caddx Walnut. Here's why I'm kind of cringing right now, Blunty. Caddx Walnut. What you have to compare it to clearly is the Runcam Orange, the Runcam 5 Orange, which costs about $110, and it's a lot of people's go-to for a not too expensive action camera, decent image quality, works with gyroflow, and at the price, it's pretty good. Caddx Walnut is clearly trying to compete with that same form factor. It's way more expensive at $170, and as a result, it would have to deliver something. And all I've heard from people who've had about this is problems with the firmware, the image quality. Caddx is trying to make it better. Have they finally made it better? Do we know?
I mean, from what I've seen, it certainly doesn't seem like it. I mean, the fact that we are comparing it to the Runcam Orange seems to be the concern, right? I mean, you guys can check out, maybe we'll put in the description, the Gal Kramer video. He just did a comparison between the Runcam Orange and the new Caddx Walnut, and I just think they look extremely comparable between each other, and that's kind of unfortunate. So
yeah, so here's the Gal Kramer video you're referring to, and we're not going to spoil the whole video and take his content. We should put a link to his video down below. That would be the polite thing to do. I think the problem is that the Runcam looks surprisingly passable for a $110 camera.
Right. That's 100%. 100%. If they were the same price, I think we may be talking differently, but unfortunately, you've got a camera that was released however long ago that still is purchasable, that seems to do just as well,
or maybe better. So, yeah,
or better in some cases.
Yeah, I don't know. Has the Caddx got some killer features that the Runcam doesn't, that makes it worth the extra price? I mean, I have to say the Caddx is doing okay. Like I heard from early people, like Caddx pushed back the release of this camera. And I heard that rumors that one of the reasons was that early reviewers got it and it was garbage. Didn't Oscar Leong or maybe Albert Kim pull his video? It was like, oh,
yeah,
they've unreleased this product. It was that bad.
Yeah, for sure. Couple things to note. It does seem like the Runcam has a smaller FOV than this guy by a little bit. So that may be a factor. Also, apparently has a little bit worse low light performance depending on the situation. And then also transfer is a thing. So I think you can use SD card in the Runcam Orange, but you can transfer directly with the Walnut.
So the Walnut has like a proper Wi-Fi interface.
I believe so.
Yeah. All right. So a few things there, but overall, it seems like at $170, you'd have to really want something that this camera offers. Whereas the Orange,
and not want something that's a little more expensive, like some kind of older GoPro, or
exactly.
You start to see other options, and you have I think we made it clear at this point.
Yeah. All righty. Good try, Caddx. This is one of the coolest gosh darn things I've seen in I don't know how long. It's a variable ND filter for GoPro. How do we explain to people who don't know what that is already, how cool this is?
Well, an ND filter, most people, I think, are starting to at least know what ND filters are, but ND filters are basically a way to remove some of the, some of the sun, some of the light from getting into your camera, sort of like sunglasses for your camera when you're flying in the light. But this is basically a variable version of that. So instead of having to carry a whole set of ND filters like most people will do, and having to have specific, pick your NDs and all those kind of things, this will go from ND2 to ND64 by just turning the dial.
Yeah. This is something that has existed on larger cameras forever. Variable ND filters are super, super useful. On GoPros, though, we usually just literally have to swap out the glass. And it means that people often end up flying with the wrong ND filter, and then their footage is ruined. And you're like, bro, why didn't you take off your ND filter? Now your footage is too dark. It's like, I didn't think of it. It's so cool to be able to adjust this on the fly. And I just saw this. It twists on and replaces the original lens cover. So it doesn't even change the form factor of the camera. It'll still fit into all your mounts. This is a killer product. They're going to sell all of these.
Yeah, here we can see just that change. It's very clear how the ND changes as you turn it. It says these sold out, I think, like a few days ago or a week ago. It says the next ones will be 6 to 8 weeks. So probably not when this video comes out, but at least you guys can get on the list and and know this guy's coming.
So hot. It's going to hurt when it breaks. So normally ND, like ND filters from Camera Butter, how much are they? They're just like a couple bucks a piece.
Yeah,
and
they're like 15 or 20 for a set, maybe, right? Oh, there's a whole set for, $10.
See here. ND4 1, add to cart. Glass, is it really $10 for one? $26. Jesus. They're $8 or $10 a piece. I think they must have gone up. I don't remember them being that expensive. That makes the variable ND even more cost effective. It's $40 for a single one. That's only 4-ish, 4 or 5. That's, yeah. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Very cool. We got a new product here from our friend Josh Medlin. His Medlin drone allows you to tilt your FPV camera and your GoPro up and down while you fly to be able to get different angles, and just very good for cinematic stuff, not so much for freestyle. But it's a very, very cool system that you mount on your drone. He's recently updated it. It used to use push rods, and the push rods could break and bend, and also had a limited range of motion. But now with a belt-based system that he's got here, you have a huge range of motion, basically from +90 to -90. Well, just whatever the actual official spec is. And it's hopefully a little more durable because that belt can take a hit and, you know, not break. So you can 3D print all the parts for this yourself. He makes them available on his website if you like, but he also sells kits. And if you want to pick up the kit and don't want to print it yourself, here is a link to it.
Yeah, he also has a build guide or like a log, sort of like Andy Shen does, where he goes through and talks about how he did it and how his design process went and how he got to where he is. So.
Very cool. See, like that shot there, Blunty, the way he's flying backwards while still looking down at the excavator, you couldn't do that exact shot without this gimbal.
Right.
You would have to pitch forward and then you would stop going backwards. So you can really see, you can really see here how the drone is moving, how the operator is moving their head, and how the camera is moving. It takes a little getting used to, but you get used to it surprisingly quick and is very, very cool, the shots you can get. Last up, then, before we get to the giveaway, the StayHigh field charging pack. What is this, Blunty? Is this a bunch of lithium-ion cells?
Yeah, so FlyHigh FPV has put together a lithium-ion pack, the 30 amp 15,000 milliamp hour 21700 pack, and basically he's tried to assemble a pack with a price that he feels is good for the amount of cells and the amount of quantity that you get. And basically, you just have to have this single pack that you can take to the field every time you want to go to the field for field charging. So basically, yeah, you get this one thing. He feels like it's a good deal and a good price and all that kind of stuff. And then you just, plug it in and you've got your field charging option. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's going to need to do the math on this. 15,000 milliamp hours, $240. We would really need to convert that to watt hours to be able to do any comparison. I'll help with that. It's a 6S 15,000 milliamp hour. So I think the right way to do that is to say 15 amp hours times 3.7 volts would be 55.5 watt hours. And then we could just compare that to other, you can't compare with milliamp hours because like you'll get a little 1S voltage USB charger that's 20,000 milliamp hours. That's not the same as a 6S. So you could just do that comparison, take the dollars per watt hour and see how that compares to whatever else you're thinking about doing and whether that's a good deal for you.
Yeah.
Do you use a field charging pack, Blunty, or do you just bring all your packs pre-charged?
I don't. I typically charge all my packs before I go and just fly them down and come back. Often, I find that I'm breaking something before I can finish all the packs anyway.
Yeah. I ever since I got these Rely-On batteries, they're so easy to bring that I'll often grab one of these Rely-On batteries and take it to the field with me, and just in case I need to charge. But that's only when I'm flying out of my car. I probably wouldn't do that if I was flying out of my backpack. Well, that brings us to everybody's favorite part of the video, the giveaway. We got to figure out what we're giving away this week, Blunty. The O3 Air Unit is an obvious choice, isn't it?
It is. Typically, though, we try to like make sure we have something for analog. You know what I mean? We go like, oh, that's digital only. I wonder what we could do otherwise. Let's see. An O3 Air Unit. I mean, anybody with the V2 goggles could use it. Anybody with a Nevada could use it. Let's see. What's a good alternative? You like that Radiomaster radio?
Ooh, that's good. The Pyrodrone Radiomaster radio.
Those are
that's
similar
about
prices.
$200.
Maybe we could let people choose. Yeah.
Well, and as always, I'm lazy. I just say, or if you don't like the prizes, I'll just give you cash. So I like people to have options. But if you want to enter, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to give away two prizes. You can choose either the O3 Air Unit, you could choose a Pyrodrone radio, or I'll just send you cash if that works for you. And you can enter the giveaway at the link in the video description below. YouTube is making it harder and harder to find the video description, so good luck with that. But there's a link to a Google form down there. You click on that link, you fill out the form, you leave your email address and your name behind, and that's how you enter the giveaway. So head on down there. I will announce the winners of the giveaway in a pinned comment below this video. As well, I will make a community post, and I will email you. So, you'll get an email in your inbox when I pick the winners. Thank you so much, Blunty.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua.
Happy holidays, by the way.
Happy holidays indeed.
Yeah, we could do. We're probably not going to do one of these in December because like it'll just be, you know, everyone will just have gone through their holidays and probably won't be sitting around looking for new products. So guess I'll see you in the new year.
All right. I guess I'll see you then. And we'll see you guys on the FPV news if you're interested in that too.
Yeah. Alrighty. That's it. We're out. Happy flying.